told Jay before the show started that I don't want to screw up exactly what he does. But my special guest today is Jay Drayer, and he is the CEO and founder of CareFlash and Prized Pals. And what I'll do is, Jay, I'll just leave it at that. And so for our audience, could you just tell them briefly what these two, dare I call them institutions, organizations, do, and then we'll go and we'll talk about your history, about how you and I actually ended up connecting.
I'm happy to. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so probably 2004 time frame or so, I had an experience with a family member who was living with a chronic illness. And I was that go-to family caretaker that people kept asking 20 times a day, how can we help? And lots of sympathies and well wishes and an occasional casserole and lots of great intentions. But as we went through this process over several months, it culminated in several weeks of hospice care in the home and the death of this loved one. It became more clear to me that most of our friends and family were much more about sympathies and well wishes and whatnot, anything other than what you can describe as just basic natural connectiveness. And so out of that, I started an organization called CareFlash, which just started its 14th year and works with almost 1,000 institutions and organizations across the healthcare continuum. Everything from NICU through hospice and palliative care and everything in the middle. Basically, this is an organization that offers a tool called a Careopolis, which we define as a metropolis of love and empathy. This is a web tool that, of course, is mobile friendly and bilingual and many other things, but it has components built into it that enable loved ones to become more part of the journey and less part of the landscape, or in a lot of cases, less part of the headwind. And the reason I say that is because when people can't move on beyond the sympathies and well wishes, that's an irritant to the sanity of family caretakers. I mean, we fight the good fight. We try to do everything we can to keep all the balls up in the air and stay productive in our lives as professionals and have some semblance of quality of life. But when people can't move on beyond those paths of least resistance, it's hard to keep all the balls up in the air and keep your sanity about you when you're going through an extended process like that. You ever been through something like that?
Not hospice care. The death of my father was pretty rapid, and so it didn't have to deal with hospice care. But my experience, probably more with the hospice care in general, is what the trend in the veterinary field is happening, where you're getting much more pets living longer lives, pets living longer. I don't even want to use the word debilitating, but I see a lot of chronic illness. Palliative care for cancer therapies, we're able to keep them their quality of life longer, but then we always have to talk about palliative care. So that's my experience personally. I haven't experienced it in the human world. Yeah.
And so our perspective was, when we entered this space 13 years ago, it was very uncommon that most people knew what hospice and palliative care was. There's still a huge chasm that exists about awareness and education about accurately what palliative care is, but hospice has become much more mainstream, and we're a big part of that whole movement in that we offer these careopolises that are branded to our clients. And so we work with hundreds of hospice and palliative care providers across the country, because if you can build community around a family that's preparing to experience the loss of a loved one, or as importantly, to grieve and move on in survivorship beyond the loss of that loved one, that's fundamental to what everybody would love to see happen, not the least of which is the family at the middle of it all, but providers and payers and society. There's a lot of implications there. And so when we brand these careopolises, we brand them not only with the logo of our client organization, but their web links that explain exactly what hospice is, where if we can build awareness and understanding in ways that promote the likelihood that people are going to embrace hospice earlier, which unfortunately in this society, at the time that people embrace this hospice, it's way, way, way beyond the point that they should have for their own quality of life, not the least of which is the person at the center of it all. And so we see all this happening, trying to grab a foothold in the veterinary world. And we're at the same place we were, 14 years ago in healthcare. And so I'm sure that's resonating with you.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. When you were saying that, we're just on the cusp, and we'll get into this. I think later in the show, we'll talk about your relationship with one of the key players in hospice and end of life care, the Lap of Love business organization. But we'll get into that. But this is not your origins, though, Jay. Your origins have really nothing to do with this, right?
Exactly. I'm a recovering CFO. It's like I had a fantastic career path undergoing, and not only all of the trappings and the benefits and perks of being a CFO, but I exited a subway at one point in my life, headed to a meeting at 60 Wall Street on the morning of 9/11, and riding up this escalator in time to see the second plane flying into the World Trade Center from 50 yards away. It changed my life, until 5 days later when I was able to leave Manhattan, and I was there with an associate of mine. We were living in San Francisco at the time. It gave me a lot of time to reflect on the difference I was making in the world, and kind of revisit the things the path of life I'd been on for many years. And it kind of led me to be open to looking at new avenues, which is kind of what that caretaking experience led me to revisit.
Wow, I didn't know that. I've just read that you're a recovering CFO, and I'm going. I've met a recovering lawyer, and he's now he's investing into purchasing and purchasing and helping financially help veterinarians. So he's that component. It's a group of young entrepreneurs who got together in MBA school, and one of them was a vet, one of them was a banker, and he goes, I'm the recovering lawyer. I met things like that. But that's amazing to I was in Jersey at the time. I was working up in northern Jersey when all this happened, and had no personal experience with any of this. A fellow associate of mine went over there as a veterinarian and helped the search and rescue dogs afterwards to make sure that they were taken care of and given sub-Q fluids, etc. But no, that's amazing. It's always life-changing things. So I always wondered how you got into this, and I think that's phenomenal.
And it's funny what life does for us and to us, but in reality, it's those life experiences, as I've seen in many of your interviews, that led people to do what they're doing. And, as we've gone through these many years of working with CareFlash and all these hundreds and hundreds of healthcare providers across the continuum of healthcare, we watched more and more people creating careopolises around their pets and pet families, and thought, why would they do that? It just didn't quite connect the dots. Well, fast forward 12, 14 years, have experience in my own family with a dog that most of my friends like more than they like me. And this is a dog that develops a chronic illness and, a series of months of decline followed by euthanasia in the home and the death of this real important family member. And so based on that whole thing, it became clear to me that in that same circumstance, most of our friends were much more about sympathies and well wishes than basic natural connectedness. That told me that if we can create a tool that fosters empathy more than sympathy, while helping enable loved ones to become more part of a journey around a pet family. And so we reached out to this facet of our user base, which is now in the tens of thousands of people using them around pet families, just to make sure we've got this clear. And out of that, we developed a new kind of pet family centric user experience that's branded Prized Pals. And Prized Pals doesn't offer a careopolis, it offers a care corral. But basically it's a private invitation only tool that resembles all the functionality we've built over these many years into CareFlash, that from listening to families around the world talk about their experiences as caretakers and patients and friends and loved ones, how we can help enhance the fabric and the texture of engagement for the benefit of everybody. And so that was really the genesis behind Prized Pals and our care corrals.
And that's amazing.